Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Live at the Waterhole. Where first up, we're in the Tosha National Park of Namibia and in specific, the Okukuyu Waterhole. My name is Ralph Kirsten. What does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax, and see what animals are going to come down. And as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience. So we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the WildEarth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag WildEarth. Also on the YouTube live chat. Number of oryx that have already come down. Seems a nice clear day here in the north central part of Namibia. Crows are calling as per usual. So speaking of it being nice and sunny here, I think it's time we go and have a look what the weather's going to be like across all the different locations. So it seems like a bit of a mixed bag where there's sun here in Okukuyu, but most of the other locations are overcast, if not even raining. Looks like a breeze coming in from the west as well. So Fuller, welcome aboard and thanks for your comment. And it does look like a smashing day here in Okukuyu. What a beautiful sight it is. I, in fact, thought those were oryx, but I think it is zebra, in fact. A few springrock just mulling about as well. There we are, a little bit of a closer view. Nice little harem. There are some oryx there as well, though. So, Catherine, you're saying nice to warm up at the water holes. I wonder what the weather's like where you are. It's probably nice and cold if you're in the northern hemisphere. We spent quite a bit of time here yesterday as well because it's pretty much the only really sunny location where there was a lot of rain about at the other spots. But it was quite interesting watching the crocodile with that carcass that they've had for a couple of days now at Africam Tau in the Madikwe Game Reserve. So, Catherine, you're saying it's 6 degrees in Germany. Well, if that's not too bad, well, I suppose it is winter, so it's probably not that bad, what it could be. But here we're sitting at about 35 degrees in Etosha. Lovely contrast, eh? Looks like lots more oryx thinking about coming down, and there's a couple of them also locking horns, having a bit of wrestling there. So, Joanne, thanks for your comment, and hello straight back at you from South Africa. Well, and here where we are in Namibia. Can hear some European bee eaters calling out, normally flying relatively high, and a lovely call that grr, grr, grr. And M, you're shouting out to us from Scotland. Oh, that's wonderful. But sad for the weather, being a bit cold and damp. Nice, hot and dry here at Okukuyu. You can hear this little call here. This is a hornbill, probably a yellow-billed hornbill. He seems to be quite close to the camera. So, Catherine, this is a very well visited waterhole with black rhino, and we have seen them during the day as well. Generally, before sunset, not normally so much, in the later morning. It's they just seem to have started their activity a bit early and being around here before sunset.
The world is celebrating Trivia Day, and WildEarth wants to share little trinkets of knowledge with you.
Poison is something, if you ingest, will kill you. Venom has to be injected.
Come along for a hilarious day and be entertained with our team trivia. Our expert naturalists across locations will pair up and compete in wildlife trivia in a battle to be the smarty pants of the safari. Don't miss out on the action. Wild Earth, it's in your nature.
Nice bit of a closer view on these oryx. Such beautiful animals. I always think they're the most elegant of all the antelope. So tender, not so. Yeah, you don't get the oryx in the Kruger, they're more of a arid adapted species. So we get them sort of up through the Karoo and into Namibia and in the greater Kalahari regions. So both the springbok and the oryx heavily specialized for dry conditions. So not really occurring on the eastern side of southern Africa. So Sarah from the UK wanting to know if it ever gets green here. Well, it does. The grass literally explodes after a decent amount of rain, and so even in this area here, it completely transforms. With firstly the green shoots of the grass, and then within about 2 weeks or so, it's very quick that the seeds develop, and mainly here would be Stipagrostis or Bushman grass, and it's a very nutritive grass as well. And it explodes here, but very quickly. Already the seeds come through, and then it turns silver with those almost corkscrew-like seeds that very quickly get dispersed as well. And there's a spike on the end of the seed. It lands having been blown with the wind, and then spikes into the ground, almost like a spear. And then, with wind action, this corkscrew sort of screws itself into the ground. And those Stipagrostis seeds can stay dormant, 10 years plus. But as soon as there's a decent amount of rain, then they'll explode into life. So the oryx all having drunk their fill, and they're moving off, but still quite a few springbok hanging around. There goes the grey hornbill once again. They almost sound like birds of prey, that high-pitched call of theirs. And there, when they call like that. So another harem of zebra also making their way through, coming to join all of these springbok and the oryx. So, EM, you want to know if there's any particular animals that we've been watching lately? And yeah, well, we've had, over the last little while. So the elephants obviously dominating the water holes when it's extremely hot. And we've chatted a lot about them, all sorts, from their thermoregulating and the wrinkles on their skin and their trunks and the ability to suck water up into the trunk without, and constricting it so that it doesn't obviously go through into the nasal passages. That's water and dust. Um, and then speaking about matriarchs and the older experienced animals, teaching the herds, different tricks at different times of the year and so on. So their memory, their intelligence, and their social structure, their communications. It's been fascinating watching them. Over the last 2 or 3 days, though, it's been quite a lot of rain all round. So the elephants seem to have dispersed a bit and not that keen to come down and not having to come and cool off as much as they did. But I still do think we'll see a couple of elephants around, just not in the sheer numbers that we've had over the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, also witnessing those crocodiles that have caught what we think was a baby buffalo, and they've been fighting over it. That's at Africam Tau in Madikwe Game Reserve. We've also been doing quite a bit of birding, and what was nice was the southern ground hornbills that we got at Juma. They're fascinating birds, but obviously very similar kind of behavior as all of the hornbills, and nesting in cavities in trees, but it needs to be huge trees to have the size cavity that is required for those rather big birds. And staying together in a family unit. So lots and lots to talk about. But whatever it is, if you have any other questions, please send it through. Now, baby jackal, you're wondering about the heat and the sand getting very hot. I think it definitely does get very hot for them. Um, at least here, there's quite a bit of trees and so on that they can go and seek shade and get out of that or away from the scorching ground. But places like down in Sossusvlei with the sand dunes, we actually had a guide that came with one of these laser detector, the heat detector. And we've checked the dunes. Sometimes they are in excess of 80 degrees Celsius. So literally, it will burn your skin. And I've had numerous occasions where guests have, gone barefoot into the dunes. It's nice and cool in the morning, but by about 11 o'clock, returning and burning their feet, actually getting blisters on their feet. So the trouble is that it's just on the surface, but if you just dig a little bit below, maybe 10, 15 centimeters, the soil is actually very cool. So a lot of the reptiles and the smaller sort of organisms, they just go underneath the surface, and they can keep themselves quite nice and cool there. So that's what a lot of them actually do. But the likes of springbok and oryx and ostrich, they generally just go and look for a bit of shade, normally under the likes of a camel thorn tree. And that's how they sort of in the heat of the day, when it gets very hot like that, that's what they'll do. They'll seek a bit of shelter and wait it out and then become more active when it's cooled down a bit. Alrighty, lovely start here in the Tosha National Park. But let's change of place, heading back to South Africa in the Northwest Province and Jamala. And we're back in Elephant Central. There's been so much activity here from elephants. And at some stage, we had over 100 elephants here at the same time. It was just incredible. So, but like you can see, a little bit overcast. There has been a splattering of rain as well, so it's cooled things down quite substantially. And that's obviously the reason why there's not as many elephants coming through here. There just seems to be bulls for now, and very often when there are animals just on their own, it would most likely be bulls. The breeding herds, the females, they stick together, obviously with the youngsters as well. But it looks like that's quite a young bull. That's maybe just following that older one around. That's what they often do. So, Angela, elephants greet one another mostly by using their trunk. So they come right up to each other, and then they often put their trunk sort of in the mouth area. of the other one, and then it's like they really use that as a way to identify the individual through the smell. And then there can be a little bit of rubbing up against each other and so on, but that real greeting is the trunk going in, and touching the other one, and then also specifically smelling around the mouth. Can you hear some red-billed oxpeckers? I wonder if there are some antelope around, maybe some impala, and that's what those oxpeckers are on. And just hanging his trunk over his tusk. We often see them doing this kind of behavior. It's like he's maybe lost one of his tusks. He's only got the one there. Ah, so it was zebra, not impala. So EM, you're exactly correct. Waterholes would definitely be a social hub for elephants, and well, that is the point where everybody sort of gathers, and then there is a lot of interacting um, between the different groups, the clans, and the herds that come together here. So it's very interesting to watch them. Sometimes you can actually see that there's specific individuals that for instance, a breeding herd don't like, and they move off very quickly when they identify them. And then there's also a lot of friendliness between them as well. So there's all sorts of behaviors that happens when they all come together here next to the waterhole. And I think a lot of discussions and conversations, etc., between the different herds and the bulls. It's just very, very interesting to watch. So they're once again having a nice close look at one of these individuals. And you can see how much blood there is that flows in the ear flaps. Nice to see the detail as well of their wrinkles. Also seeing a bit of, and how much hair they actually have. You don't see it until you get in nice and close, and you don't realize that they have that much hair. So I think it's Linda asking about the Brenda asking about the tusks and what would cause them to break. So Brenda, there's a number of different reasons why they could break. You know, some elephants in particular areas they will have quite brittle tusks because lacking a bit of calcium or certain minerals in their diet. Um, so the likes of the Etosha elephants and also in Botswana, their tusks are reasonably fragile because they're brittle because of this lacking in their diet. So they don't really get very long tusks at all, and they break off um, when the elephants are either trying to debark a tree. They strip the bark and they feed on it. They can also sort of tusk the ground sometimes, to break it up. And they go for termite mounds as well because it's full of nutrients. And so they break it up with their tusks. They also do fight with each other. So very often with the bulls, and if they've got one that's broken, it's generally from fighting with other bulls. Sometimes not very serious, but they do, headbutt each other and try and sort of stab each other with their tusks. So when they lock heads like that, very often you can have them being broken off. And sometimes when a big bull comes into must, he wants to fight with everybody. So it can very easily then, break some individuals' tusks off as well, like that.
Our UK family is important to us. WildEarth is making your viewing experience more convenient with a time shift that will see a delayed start. Our sunrise safari will now be broadcast at UK sunrise times. Don't miss a moment of your favorite shows. To watch it live, go to the WildEarth app or website.
Incredible.
WildEarth, connecting you to nature.
All right. So, as always, lovely stop in here at Jamala, but I think let's change of place. This time, let's go to the Greater Kruger Park and King's Camp. We've got a small group of impala just off on the other side of the waterhole. And there's our resident Egyptian geese. See one there on the right. A little bit windy, I think, today in these parts. Looks like it might be a bachelor herd of impala there, all the rams. So JB asking about the uses for the animals' tails besides chasing flies. Yes, so a lot of them you'll see whenever there's some kind of disturbance or there's a predator around or whatever it might be. Sometimes even us as humans, when we go on bushwalk and the animals run away from you, you'll see them sort of underneath the tail. A lot of the species have got a very bright white, sort of fluffiness to the tail. As they raise that and they run off, it's like what we call a follow me sign, so that they can follow each other through the bush. Kudu have it, impala have it, even springbok, but theirs is like a bit of a pouch type thing. But it really does stand out when they run through the bush, especially when they're running, from a predator or from us as humans. You see how they raise those flags. Also, I think a lot for the youngsters that they can follow. And they also say that with the impala, they've got like that black M or those black stripes on their bum. That's also another one of the sort of markings that help when they want to follow each other. So yeah, the tail, just a bit of a display mechanism for different reasons, apart from swatting flies. So, Lorraine, you're saying that this scene is food for the soul. It is lovely and peaceful. Hey, it's just the wind that's making a bit of noise. Otherwise, the animals all look nice and calm, and there doesn't seem to be any predators around for now. Yeah, we just heard a woodland kingfisher calling.
For those in the wet and cold this festive season, transport yourself to a warm and sunny Africa. With virtual safaris in real time. Interact with African naturalists, connect with fellow nature lovers across the globe, fall in love with nature, and join the WildEarth family this festive season. WildEarth, connecting you to nature.
So the impala just milling about. There's a lot of them lying down, probably ruminating, and that's a very important part of the day as well. So it's not wasted, and it's not just that they're resting. Yes, they will be resting, but it's a very important function that they need to perform with the chewing of the cud. So our mission here at WildEarth is to connect the world with nature. And if you'd like to help us in our quest, you can go onto the WildEarth website and click donate. So lovely seeing you with the impala, but I think it's time to change of place again, and let's head back to Etosha. The continuous ebb and flow here at this waterhole. Lots of springbok here now. And a couple of oryx on the opposite bank, and we can hear the Egyptian geese calling now. Might just hear some voices there. That's obviously from tourists that are on site, also watching here at the Okakuyo Waterhole. This camera is just above the viewing area. And it doesn't matter how much noise they make, the animals do not react in any way whatsoever. They're very used to it. So the national animal of Namibia with their deadly straight horns. And of course, another springbok going for a swim. So EM, the diet differences between the bushveld and the desert. In the desert, they don't have as much choice as the antelope in the bushveld. There's a lot more specialist plants and a lot of euphorbias that are present in the desert. And there's also some very specialized melons, like the Ara melon and the Tsama melon. And this is one of the fruits that the oryx will actually feed on and get their moisture from in the desert without having to drink water. They just get enough moisture from those melons themselves. And also some of the animals even do eat the very toxic euphorbias, which are cactus-like plants. We don't have any natural cactus in Africa. It's all it would be exotic if there are any, and mainly coming from South America. But our equivalent of that is the euphorbia plants that we have, and all of them have a level of toxicity with a milky white latex. Um, but the Euphorbia damarana, for instance, the oryx can feed on it, as well as black rhino. And so much so that we call it, or nicknamed it, the rhino ice cream, because once you break off one of the leaves, which are succulent, that white latex literally pours out. So you often, when the black rhino feed on it, they get this milk all around their mouths and dripping all over the place, and so it looks like they've been eating ice cream. So that's why we call that. And obviously, they've got acid in their stomach that neutralizes the poison protein. And so they're actually able to eat it, as well as the oryx, but they don't really eat it too much. Anyway, in terms of grass and grazing in the desert, only a few species, but luckily for the animals here, the couple of species that do grow in abundance, particularly Stipagrostis, bushman grass, it's very nutritious. So it's excellent fodder for them. And then, as I say, in the bushveld, there's just a much bigger range of species that the animals get to feed on, so they can pick and choose. Whereas in the desert, a lot less species, and it can sometimes be quite a struggle for them, because a lot of the plant species actually have a very short lifespan, a life cycle. Sometimes just surviving for about a month, and they've already reproduced everything, done it all, dropped seeds, and then they go dormant again. And because it's all around the rain, and very quickly before it dries out again, they need to complete their life cycle. So yeah, then obviously it would remain in dry protein, and it does lose sort of a level of protein when it does dry, but still very nutritious. And so I would say that's probably the biggest difference, that in the desert, they don't have as much choice, and it's obviously a lot more sparse. So, yeah, it's a lot more difficult for the animals in the desert conditions than in the bushveld, where there's many species to choose from, and also lots of nutritious species.
Our UK family is important to us. WildEarth is making your viewing experience more convenient with a time shift that will see a delayed start. Our sunrise safari will now be broadcast at UK sunrise times. Don't miss a moment of your favorite shows. To watch it live, go to the WildEarth app or website.
Incredible.
WildEarth, connecting you to nature.
You often see the oryx using their horns to scratch their back. And they're very accurate with it as well, with them. So Sarah from the UK was asking, is Okukuyu and Namibia in general a tourist destination? Yes, absolutely, Sarah. And there's been more and more tourism in Namibia every year. Just before COVID, it was the busiest it had ever been. But it so obviously dropped off during that period and the lockdowns and so on. But now it's getting back up there once again. And yeah, from the south in the Fish River Canyon, all the way up to Luderitz and the ghost town of Kolmanskop, the old diamond mine, into the Dune Sea and right up to Walvis Bay. But Sossusvlei, renowned for the very red and the largest dunes in the world. So beautiful photography in that area around Sossusvlei, where the Tsochab River gets blocked by the dunes. And so, every few years that river flows, and then you have these pans in the dunes, which is incredible, and some camel thorn trees growing there. So very famous around obviously the dune photography, but also dead flay and Sossusvlei. And sometimes even when there's enough water, the flamingos even come through there, which is spectacular. Then there's the Namib Nauklift Park, a protected area, and just beautiful mountainous regions as well. And then up to Walvis Bay, that's a World Heritage Site, and the lagoon itself with beautiful tours around the lagoon. And then up the Skeleton Coast. Awesome scenery. And that's besides the moon landscape, which would have been before Walvis Bay. And then into Damaraland, Cocoland, sort of that northwestern wilderness. There's desert elephants, desert adapted animals. It's just spectacular as well. And then Etosha, obviously. And then heading to the northeast, you're going to the Caprivi Strip, and there is the Kavango River, which feeds the Okavango, as well as the Zambezi, and all the way into Chobe National Park. So it's a real tropical area on that northeastern corner, which is a massive contrast to the sort of desert conditions of the south, and the second largest canyon in the world, the Fish River Canyon, and then the largest dunes in the world in Sossusvlei. And yeah, there's just so much to see in Namibia. There's only 2.5 million people. So, as we say, the land of wide open spaces and happy faces. And Obviously Tosha is the real iconic game reserve in Namibia, but it's not the only one. But it's the most visited by tourists, and yes, during the season it can be full, and so it's sort of coming to the end of the season now. It's normally about March, April to about November, and that's all throughout the dry season. And now, as you can see, after a little bit of rain, the animals do start to disperse a bit, and you don't really get the elephants here this time of the year either. They'll come a little bit later on next year, maybe March, April, May. They might come through or return to this side. But yeah, a huge tourist attraction, the whole of Namibia, but Etosha in specific, especially for safaris.
For those in the wet and cold this festive season, transport yourself to a warm and sunny Africa. With virtual safaris in real time. Interact with African naturalists, connect with fellow nature lovers across the globe, fall in love with nature, and join the WildEarth family this festive season. WildEarth, connecting you to nature.
So, Sarah from the UK, you're very welcome for answering your question. And please keep firing away. It's lovely to get the questions through from the viewers. Always appreciate it. All right, so we've gotten to the time that we're going to be introducing all of the AfriCam locations. So that's quite exciting because we'll have a whole lot more choice and variety to be able to go to.